And Ferras at that time was a training partner of mine, and I decided, like I said, he always been more intellectual than every one of us, and we always went to see Ferras for advice, and I decided to ask him if he would be interesting to take me under his wing as a trainer, because I know I personally felt very confident to have Ferras on my side.
I wore a lot of hats for George. I was a striking coach, I was his grappling coach as well, I was his wrestling coach, along with a lot of great other coaches, of course. We were heavily mentored by John Danaher and many other great coaches, but a lot of times we're just me and him, so I'd have to polish up all his arts as well. And I was also his security guard, and I was also his mental coach as well. Of course, we worked with Brian Kane, a mental coach, but I also helped push him a little bit further, because George was a very nervous guy.
Before I fight, I always get very nervous, very excited, very scared because of doubt. This feeling of uncertainty, it's very hard, and it's barely tolerable.
I would always try to tell him to never see his opponent as greater than he is or inferior to what he is. People always say the glass is half full or the glass is half empty. Leibniz, a great German philosopher, says, look, see the glass as it actually is. It's at half its capacity. It's not half full and it's not half empty, it's half its capacity. So when he was fighting, for instance, Matt Serra, the first time around, he might have overlooked Matt Serra. He looked at Matt Serra as lower than what he is, and he was surprised. And sometimes when he fought BJ Penn, especially the first time, he thought BJ Penn was more than, maybe what he was. George, you're just as good as him. And we were always trying to bring back his mind to seeing things as they truly are.
I know if Ferras tells me to do something in a fight, I just do it. It's very important you have that connection with your trainer, that you trust him. You trust his judgment. And before I had great trainer, but I didn't trust them with my life as much as I trust Ferras. Ferras, he would tell me something, I will do it without even hesitation, without even questioning what his judgment, because that's how much I trust him.
Sometimes he would fight a guy, he would tell me, oh, that guy has a lot of knockout power. And I would cross-examine him, his fears, like a lawyer would. And I'm like, why do you say that? Well, he knocked out his last two opponents. What round did he knock them out? In the first round. Has he ever knocked out a guy in the second or third? Nope. Oh, so he's powerful in the first 2 minutes. Oh, yes, so you have a realization. So if after the first 2 minutes, what happens statistically to his knockout power? Well, he has 20 other fights that didn't go to knockout. So I would start to cross-examine him a lot. I would put him on the witness stand a lot, and I'll cross-examine his fears. And I think when you cross-examine your fears, you find a lot of times that they're not so big and scary. UFC 94 was the most important fight in TriStar's history, in my opinion. There were so many important dynamic elements to that fight. Number one, GSP was world champion, and he was taking on BJ Penn, who was also world champion. And they were shooting the primetime. Now, it was the first primetime special they had ever shot. So UFC now was embarking in a new endeavor to promote the fight.
I remember that we were all flabbergasted, going, what the hell is this all about? The guys were waltzing in the gym, which was a normal sparring day.
The fight was promoted globally. They followed us. I remember the camera crew was following us around every day for 30 days. So for us, it was completely new.
I was like, what the hell is going on here, So we didn't understand this thing, so we just kept doing our normal thing, and we had no clue that it would have blew out of proportion.
Now, we all know George won that fight, and he did it in spectacular fashion. And before that fight, nobody knew how the fight was going to go. I mean, we were extremely nervous, prepping, putting our heart and soul in this preparation. But after UFC 94, things changed. I mean, the gym just exploded. I was going to the US, and people were recognizing me. George was going to the US. We used to go to the US, and people would recognize us, kind of. We would come home, and nobody would really recognize us. But now, when we were traveling back and forth, everybody knew me and George. Freddie Roach was willing to work with us. Braulio Estima, Roger Gracie, world champions from different disciplines, where if we called them and asked them to come down to train with us, or we wanted to go train with them, they would pick up our calls. People respected us, they knew us, and we just became part of that group, So we used that exposure to snowball our experience. I became a much better trainer after UFC 94. Why? Because I started to train with many great trainers in their art. When George would bring in a trainer, I would definitely go in as a student. So when he brought in, Muay Thai champions, I would go as a student. I would take the class with George because my #1 priority was education. I wanted to learn everything that these guys know. And because my goal is to be the greatest MMA trainer in the world. And if you're going to be an MMA trainer, you need to know every single discipline to a T. And that's my goal. I want to know everything. What will be the byproduct of all this focus in training? It remains to be seen. Will the gym get bigger? Will it get smaller? I don't know. I will continue to follow this path. I will continue to learn martial arts till the end.